Okay, so let's talk about the funeral. I had a couple people ask me if I would break down this argument slash heated conversation after at the wake. Um, I have so many opinions about this show, and today has been a wild day. So let's talk about how Belly immediately goes to the worst when she sees Aubrey. She, at this point, does not know about Conrad's panic attacks at all. She has no indication of them, which, not her fault. Conrad has not opened up to her about them. Now, we have to remember, this is 13, I believe it's 13 days after prom. Give or take. Susanna died 13 days after prom, so we're probably talking about maybe 15, 16 days after prom. So this is all fresh. Their breakup is very fresh. He is now having a panic attack because his mom has just passed away. He's dealing with trying to walk away from ballet because he thinks it's what's best for her. When Conrad gets this idea in his head, his immediate instinct is to shut down and become essentially an asshole. And the reason he does that is because he doesn't want to see people to see how bad he is actually hurting. And it's funny because we actually get Jeremiah saying this to him in episode 8 of season 2. He actually tells Conrad, I know why you're doing this, and it's so that way people don't see how badly you're hurting, and this is exactly what he does. He immediately resorts to going hardcore because he doesn't want Belly to see how bad he's hurting, and he thinks what he's doing is best for her. Now we see a little crack in the armor when she trips and he wants to help her out because that's just who he is. And you can tell that this is tearing him apart. He does not want to do this. And my heart breaks in this scene for Belly too, because at this point she's very insecure still. She's also dealing with a lot of rejection and now grief on top of that. That it's just a very messy situation. Neither one of them handled it correctly. Never should have happened at a funeral, but it did. And we can also talk about how Laurel acted, how Laurel looked at her and made it out to be this big thing. She caused a little scene. It's okay. Things like this the emotions are running high. This is the son of the person who just passed away and someone who was like a daughter to her. These kids are hurt. They're hurting so badly, and I feel like a lot of the times with Belly is her grief is always pushed aside. And if you've been on our lives, mine and Becca's, and as well as mine and Gina's and Bria and Esther and all of us, we've actually talked about this a lot, about how Belly's grief was pushed aside so much during this point. Her guidance counselor pushed it down and it didn't even validate it. She said, that was then, you've been doing this all year. Laurel did it to her. It was constantly pushed aside and she was never allowed to fully grieve on her own. And I think that's where we're at now with her too, even at the end of season 2, is she's still not grieved. She is still trying to hold on to the past, which is but also letting go of her past with Conrad. She wants to put everything in a little box and shut it and keep it shut. She doesn't want it all to come out because if it comes to the surface, it's going to explode. And we even get her saying that to Laurel after the party when Laurel arrives in Cousins. So this scene was magnificently done by Chris and Lola. I could go on for days about how amazing their acting is together. They are excellent scene partners. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They just complement each other. They have a lot of chemistry between one another in just a scene partner type of way where they can read each other's emotions And it's just such a great scene, and I was so excited to see this one come to life. So tell me what your thoughts are on the funeral scene, and let me know what you want me to dive into next.
Spoiler warning for The Summer I Turned Pretty, Book 3. Swipe away if you don't want to see. Thank you for your comment, but this is wrong. It was very in character for Jeremiah to cheat on Belly. In fact, it couldn't have been more in character, and I'm going to explain this to you. These two boys, this entire story is based off of the classic story Sabrina. Belly being Sabrina and the Fisher boys representing the Larrabee boys. Jeremiah, in particular, representing David Larrabee. This is literally his character's archetype. Thank heavens that Jeremiah is a little bit deeper than David Larrabee, but is he though? Is he? Sabrina opens with this dialogue. Once upon a time, on the north shore of Long Island, some 10 miles from New York, there lived a small girl on a large estate. The estate was very large indeed and had many servants.
All right, we're doing it. We're diving into Sassy Conrad. And please, 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 Amazon, give us the Summer I Turned Pretty bloopers part 2 for this exact moment. I need a whole 30 minutes of the uncut footage of this. Please and thank you. So let's talk about this. A lot of people thought this was and I say a lot of people, I mean, technically Team Jeremiah was thinking this was him competing against Jeremiah. It's not. What Conrad is doing is resorting back to his old ways. He decides when things are hurting him, his mentality is to strictly go to being an asshole. And that's because he doesn't want people to see how badly he is hurting. Right now, you're getting a very, very hurt person who doesn't care what he says. And in some ways, you can't blame him, because he just caught his ex-girlfriend, the love of his life, kissing his brother while she's wearing his sweatshirt on his car. So for him, that is a lot. So resorting back to those old ways and being an asshole is just classic Conrad. Just a little bit more sassier than usual. He is hurting. He is hurting so badly, and he does not want to show Belly or Jeremiah how badly they hurt him. And we actually hear Jeremiah talk about this later in this episode, where he says, I know what you're doing. You're being I don't know if I could say the word on TikTok, so I'm not going to. So nobody sees how badly you're hurting. That's what he's doing. This is just case in point of him being hurt. And to cover up for that, he's willing to hurt other people. Now, one thing to point out is in that entire entire monologue of his sassiness, he not once ever hurts Belly. He does not see anything to hurt her. His hurt is all pushed towards Jeremiah, because that boy loves Belly more than anything in this world, and he will never intentionally hurt her with words, regardless of the situation. He will walk away if he thinks that's what's going to make her happy, which is what he ultimately does. He has proven over and over again that all he thinks about is what's best for Belly, and he will never intentionally hurt her. And I hate when I see the videos that are like, oh, he hurt her, he didn't hurt her here. He had said nothing to hurt her. His anger and his words and him hurting people with his words was directed at Jeremiah, because he can never intentionally hurt this girl. So who else loves Sassy Conrad? Are we all in agreement that Sassy Conrad is the best? Because I loved him. Because Finch is fun.